Hi, and welcome to The Narrative Unscripted. Today, I want to change the pace a little bit. My last couple of episodes were about the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively lawsuit around the It Ends With Us film adaptation. And I am still following that story and that case, and I will be making videos on that in the future. But I also want to cover other topics that are interesting to me. And so today you can probably tell that the video is about, or this video is going to be about the AI 2027 report. So I guess the first thing I should show you is the web or the YouTube channel. So there was for those of you who do not know, there was a viral video that was released earlier this year from a YouTube channel called AI in Context. So I'm going to show you that. So this is the YouTube channel. And as you can see, the video I'm talking about is this one here, the We're Not Ready for Superintelligence. Super viral, 8.8 million views. So it's very likely that you have probably seen this video. If not, I highly recommend it. It was super well made and very professional and just well put together. But in that video, they cover this report that was released even earlier. I think about a couple of months before they made this video, they released this report, and it was called AI 2027. It's basically a report that was put together by researchers and industry professionals that work in the industry of AI, in the tech industry. It's like a scenario. I guess they would consider it a scenario report. It is basically a fictional story that has two separate endings. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of story. But it's a fictional story that has a lot of evidence to support it. So I would call it almost like a fiction with evidence, like a well-supported fictional story. Today, we're going to actually read through the report. But before we do that, I have my little presentation, of course, to kind of just give an overview of what this report is, why I believe that we should care about it, and what were the main overarching claims being made in the report. Okay, so let's just start from the top. Just in case you've never heard of this and you're like, what is the big deal? What even is it? Let's start from the top. What actually is AI 2027? Okay, so AI 2027 is a scenario report that was created by researchers in the AI industry. So it's researchers and industry professionals. So these are people who have also worked with these exact companies that are developing this technology. And that's what made it interesting to me. The authors are part of a small research group called AI Futures Project, and this scenario is their first major release under that nonprofit organization. Their goal is to forecast the future of AI, and they are attempting to predict the potential impacts of this technology over the next decade. That's essentially what's happening in this report, but I think overall, that's what they intend to do with their nonprofit organization. That's the AI Futures Project. It's a nonprofit. And I do hope to, in the future, cover more in detail the authors of this AI 2027 and the work that they're doing in that nonprofit, because I just find it interesting. So I do have plans in the future to make videos about the people who put together this report, where, what their history is, what companies they've worked with and all that. There is information like that on the website too, but we won't go over that today because I'm trying to keep it focused and as short as possible. So that's essentially what this report is. Okay, so why does it matter? Because I'm sure some of you who maybe haven't heard of this are wondering okay, why do we care about this report? What makes this report so special? So here are some of my opinions on why I think this is important and why I wanted to cover it. So the first thing is, this technology that they're talking about has the potential to drastically change our everyday life, making it a major matter of public concern. I'm being a little conservative in those notes there. I actually think it's safe to say that this technology, AI and eventually AGI, which I believe is artificial general intelligence, this technology, I actually think it's safe to say at this point that it will absolutely have an impact on our everyday life, a drastic impact on our everyday life, how we work, how we communicate with each other in the future, how we handle business, and everything. I think it's safe to say at this point, it absolutely is basically imminent. This technology is coming, it's already here in a lot of ways, and it will absolutely affect our everyday life. So that means we should care. We should be paying attention to what these people are doing in this industry. Not just what they're doing, but kind of like if there's going to be any oversight to what they're doing as well. The authors have direct experience inside of the AI industry, and they understand how these systems are built. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but there is on this website, which by the way, I plan to link it in the description and probably in my, I can't pin comments right now because I'm still an early channel. And for some reason, they don't allow new channels to pin comments. So, but I plan to make a comment and add this report into my comment as well as the description of the video. But the authors, this was the main reason why I personally was interested in it, because it's not just reporters talking about it. Like maybe they did some interviews with people who work in the industry and then they wrote about it. That's still valuable. And there's actually some articles when I was looking into this report, I found some other articles that were written by journalists that were talking with other whistleblowers, and other people who work in the industry who were kind of putting out cautionary warnings about this technology. That's still very valuable. But what's interesting about this is that some of these people who put together this report worked in this industry hand in hand with some of the companies like OpenAI, and they've worked with these companies that are making this technology or attempted to make it right now. So they have firsthand experience, and that's why I was particularly extra interested. This report gives us just a glimpse into two possible scenarios and the potential consequences that could follow, allowing us to consider the implications and possible actions that we can take. So that's one thing that that interested me in this and why I think we should care. I still think that it's interesting to hear from people who have been in the industry what they believe are some potentials that could happen. So that's that's one thing, one reason why I think we should care. And the last one is it provides a counter narrative to the optimistic messaging that we've been hearing about AI so far. So I know that obviously, I'm online like most of us are, and I see that there are people who have been sounding the alarm over the years about this technology. But I still feel like, and maybe you would disagree, but I feel like for the most part and overall, there's been optimism about this technology, that it's going to be all roses and it's going to be wonderful and it's going to create this utopia and we're all going to be able to communicate even better. We're going to be able to communicate even faster. We're going to be able to work even easier. And I do believe that especially the people who are making this technology, which by the way, they have an incentive to do so. But anyway, the people who are making this technology, who are involved in making this technology, are especially optimistic, I think, about how great this is going to be. And then there's plenty of everyday people in the public who agree with them. I see them on Twitter all the time being like, look at what I made with this AI technology. Oh, this is so amazing. Oh, I'm being an artist and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that, it's cool, but it's just, I think so far, I would argue that on the spectrum of what is the sentiment around this technology, I think most of it is positive and making it seem like this is going to be wonderful and there's not going to be any problems whatsoever. And I like that this particular report is giving a counter to that overall optimistic message. It's basically saying no, there's real potential negative side effects to this. And here's two scenarios where how this could go. As we will see looking through the website, they have a lot of supporting evidence that helped shape the stories that they are telling. Okay, so there are two main claims being made in this AI 2027 report, and that viral video does a great job going through and kind of explaining the narratives that come through. So I wanted to go ahead, for those of you who don't want to go through the website, to just give the two overarching claims in case you have not seen the video, so that we're all on the same page. So what I thought was interesting about the way the report is laid out is that everything is following the same sequence of events until we get to basically a turning point, a critical point in the story. And then you can decide, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. So you can choose which side, what decision we end up making, and then you get to see the end result of that as you read through. One is considered kind of a better alternative, a better story than the other. So in a way, it feels like a good ending versus a not so good ending. But I saw through reading through the website that they actually wrote on there like, okay, this necessarily, this good storyline, we still do not recommend that that's what we do. So even though they kind of set it up to where there's a good and a bad ending, they're saying, okay, we understand that it feels like that, but this good ending is still like, we would not recommend it. We're just saying like, this is what happens if we happen to like choose a better, like this is a slightly better scenario, but we're still not recommending that that's what we do. So I thought that was interesting, and we'll go through it and we'll see that. So what were the two basically endings, the good and the bad ending? Just for brevity, I'll say good and bad ending. So the good ending. In the good ending, what ends up happening is when I say we, it's this story seems to be mostly written from the perspective of the United States having the lead and getting, this technology before anyone else. So we is really talking about like the United States government and all that, and the people in this fictional company, which is apparently is going to be based in the United States. And the fictional company is called OpenBrain. So basically, the leadership of OpenBrain and the United States government decide that they're going to slow down the development of this AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence, to focus on alignment. And we will talk more about what all that means, but basically to make sure that the artificial intelligence is not like developing its own motivations. And then because we do that, life for us, the public, and for them, changes drastically, but humans and these AI systems are able to coexist with each other, and society adapts relatively well. And I put a relatively well quotes. So what happens in the not so good ending? Okay, so in the not so good ending, what ends up happening is the United States government and this fictional OpenBrain leadership, OpenBrain company, they decide that they're going to push forward and develop this AGI, this artificial general intelligence, as fast as possible. So they don't slow down. They just go, okay, look, we think this is going to be fine, so we're just going to power through it. And because what's the motivation? They want to maintain their lead over their competitors. So this is internationally and domestically. So I thought that was interesting. But still, well, at this point, it's really about internationally because they've already like merged. If I remember correctly through the narrative, at this point, OpenBrain has already merged with the competitors that are domestic, and this is more about continuing their lead or keeping their lead internationally. So they push through anyway, even though they're like, okay, there's some weird stuff going on, but we're just gonna power through. We think it's fine. The models are not aligned, and they become increasingly capable, which means they are increasingly more, they're better. The intelligence of this technology is more efficient, and it's better at what it does. So it becomes more capable. The creators, which would be OpenBrain and, well, mostly OpenBrain and their leadership and all the people working for this company, eventually can no longer control it. They're not able to control this technology because it now has developed, it's more capable, it's smarter than everyone, and now it's able to, and it has its own motivations. So now they can't control it. They can't tell it to like course correct or do what it needs, stop doing whatever it's doing. And then eventually the technology evolves to see humans, us, as like obstacles to its own motivations and what it is that it wants. And then it ultimately decides to eliminate us, make us extinct. So that, I know this sounds like science fiction, but as you'll see, they have a lot of evidence to support why they're saying what they're saying. Let's go through it now. So that's my little presentation on AI 2027, the little overview. So now let's actually go through the website. So yeah, here's the report. So what I plan to do, I don't want to read through everything, but I will read through most of it and then kind of give my analysis and commentary on that and opinions. So this is kind of like the opening. Oh, and another thing I wanted to add is they did, after the video went viral and all that, they did add some additional they made an update. And I want to make a video separately going through that. I don't want to go through that today because it'll be too long if I do all that. But they did add some information here, some more context and all that to prevent misunderstandings. And I think it's important that we follow up with that. So I will make a video in the future going through the authors, as well as updating or going through this addition that they added here. So let's just go through the little intro here that they wrote. So it says, we predict that the impact of superhuman AI over the next decade will be enormous, exceeding that of the Industrial Revolution. We wrote a scenario that represents our best guess about what that might look like. It's informed by trend extrapolations, war games, expert feedback, experience at OpenAI. See, so this is what I'm saying. That is, one of the main things that got my attention. And previous forecasting successes. So see, they have these little numbers here that kind of give you even more detail. So like here, they're saying that they disagree somewhat about the timelines. So you see, so there's a lot here. And then here's something else that's talking about, one of the authors and the exercises that he's done in the past. Oh, maybe there's, we could go through some of those too in the future just to see, okay, what were the things that were successful that we've already seen come to fruition now. Okay, so let's get right into it. Here is the first thing that happens. So it follows a chronological order. So this is mid-2025. So we've already passed that, right? So let's see what they're saying. This is stumbling agents. The world sees its first glimpse of AI agents. Advertisements for computer using agents emphasize the term personal assistant. You can prompt them with tasks like order me a burrito on DoorDash or open my budget spreadsheet and sum this month's expenses. They will check in with you as needed, for example, to ask you to confirm purchases. Though more advanced than previous iterations like Operator, they struggled to get widespread usage. Meanwhile, out of public focus, more specialized coding and research agents are beginning to transform their professions. So this is interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not super. I don't use a whole lot of like these AI products. So perhaps there are already some things here where you can you tell an AI at this point to order yourself a burrito on DoorDash? Let's see what they've got here for this. Oops. At first, most people are reluctant to allow purchases. Right. Okay. Now I feel like that makes sense. I know I probably would. I'd be like, what's going on? Okay. At first, most people are reluctant to allow purchases without oversight. Over the next few years, automatically allowing small purchases becomes normalized as the AIs become more reliable and build up trust. This makes sense. I think that we have seen lots of this already happen, even, for those of us, who've been living as long as we have now. I remember when like auto charging was like not a thing. For example, like setting up like your phone bill to be automatically drafted from your account. That was like not at first seen as something that people wanted to do in the very, very beginning when that technology was first showing up. And now I think it's definitely more normalized, and some people just, let their the phone bill get auto drafted. And then they even added certain incentives. Like I know my phone company will say, oh, we'll take $5 off of your bill if you will allow us to auto draft it. So that's an example. So I could see at first maybe people don't want to do this for the exact reasons that they're saying, but then maybe some of these technologies will start to come up with ways to, normalize it for us. Now let's see what they say here. Okay, so they're talking about that Operator. Specifically, we forecast that they score 65% on the OS World benchmark for basic computer tasks, compared to 38% for Operator and 70% for typical skilled non-expert human. Okay, so that's interesting. So they're basically saying that eventually, that whatever this Operator, I don't want to go into every little website, but I guess this is an example of what they're talking about. This is a product that I guess you can get that will do this kind of tasks for you. Okay, so let's keep going. The AIs of 2024 could follow specific instructions. They could turn bullet points into emails and simple requests into working code. In 2025, AIs function more like employees. Coding AIs increasingly look like autonomous agents rather than mere agents. taking instructions via Slack or Teams and making substantial code changes on their own, sometimes saving hours or even days. Research agents spend half an hour scouring the internet to answer your question. That's interesting. Now, what's this? For example, we think coding agents will move towards functioning like Devin. Okay, we forecast that mid-2025 agents will score 85%. So I'd be curious to know if the people who are working in coding, if this is true, is this already happening now? Because we're already at the end of 2025. We're getting ready to go into 2026. So I'm curious to know, can you already set up coding AIs that will, make, what did it say? Taking that can take a simple request and make it into working code. Are we already there? Yeah. Okay, continuing. The agents are impressive in theory and in cherry-picked examples, but in practice, unreliable. AI Twitter is full of stories about tasks bungled in some particularly hilarious ways. The better agents are also expensive. You get what you pay for, and the best performance costs hundreds of dollars a month. Still, many companies find ways to fit AI agents into their workflows. Okay, so I would argue, as somebody who's not in this industry, I think that I'm seeing this. I would agree that this is happening right now. I've absolutely seen people on AI Twitter, talking about, oh, look at how this, AI didn't do it the right way. Look how silly, and laughing about it. I've absolutely been scrolling by and seen those conversations taking place. I also could have imagined that maybe there are better agents available that are more expensive. I have not looked for them because I don't have any use for that, but I'm sure that exists. And then this I believe is happening for sure right now. Definitely many companies are finding ways to put AI into there. Everywhere I look, there's an AI something. So every company is definitely trying to get on the AI on the AI wave for sure. Let's see what they added here. Enterprise tools like Glean, that's another tool, also move toward providing increasingly autonomous AI agents. Okay, so see, now what does this say? Okay, here's something that is quantifying the expense of agents. For example, OpenAI's Pro plan. Okay, right, so they're talking about the cost currently. If you wanted to get, $200 a month. Devin currently costs $500 a month. Okay, so so there are products now that are more autonomous, but they cost a lot more. I've not used them because I'm not, like I say, in this space. But those of you who have, I would love to know, if you're paying the $500 a month for the Devin, AI Devin, how is it much better? I hope so for $500 a month. I hope it's doing a lot. I hope it's pretty impressive for $500 a month. But even anybody who's paying for the OpenAI $200 a month, I'd be curious to know what your experience is too. I would imagine you've compared these paid versions with free versions and other AI tools, and I wonder, how do they stack up? Okay, so let's move on. So now we're late 2025. So that's kind of where we are now. So let's see what they say. The world's most expensive AI. OpenBrain, which, by the way, is the fictional company that they put together. It is not obviously a real company. So they did that to try to they were like, we don't want to single out any one real company that's working in this space right now, so we just made a fictional name. So it could be any of these companies that are operating right now. We're just making this fictional company, so that nobody tries to attack any one company. Okay, so OpenBrain is building the biggest data centers the world has ever seen. So let's see. Oh gosh, this is like a bunch of tech stuff. just talking about how powerful the data centers are. Okay, I'm gonna leave that one to the tech people. Okay, so here they are explaining. To avoid singling out any one existing company, they're going to describe this fictional company as OpenBrain. That's all they're saying right there. And then, so this would be the one that's doing the best out of all of them. So OpenBrain would be the one that is doing the best or making progress in this space the most. And then there's other, as they're saying, they're going to call it OpenBrain. And then they imagine that the others will be 3 to 9 months behind OpenBrain. So this is all the other competitors, domestic and internationally. Okay, and so then, okay, here's their little chart that's kind of showing, I guess, the difference. This is GPT-3. We're already, I believe, on GPT 5.1 at the time of recording this video. So they're saying, look how little, this is how much computing power, I guess, for GPT-3. Here's how much for GPT-4. And now let's look, wow, how much for what they're going to call Agent 1. Look how much different. There's GPT-4, and look how much more, I guess this is a graph showing the computing power difference. So that helps for people who don't know what you guys are who are not in this industry, who don't know what you guys are talking about. That definitely gives a visual representation, and it helps somebody like me out. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to get into a little bit more tech terminology. And I do not know, is this like 10 to the power of 25? I'm just going to guess that's how you say that. I'm sorry for all the tech people who know. If I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry. Okay, so GPT-4 required 10 to the power of 25 flop. Okay, so they're explaining the power that they needed of compute to train. What does this say? Okay, yeah, and they're explaining how it's measured in floating point operations, which is flop. How many individual addition? Okay, and multiplication operations occur over the course of a running program. Okay. OpenBrain's latest public model, which is Agent Zero. So this is the public model. This is very important and something that I found interesting when reading through this. So the public model is Agent Zero. So that's what we would be using, me and you, those of us who are not, out here in the public. We would be using Agent Zero by, when is it supposed to be? Yeah, like now. So we're at the late 2025 part of this story. So that would be right now. So the latest public model, Agent Zero, was trained with 10 to the power of 27 flop. Once the new data centers are up and running, they'll be able to train a model with 10 to the power of 28. So that doesn't seem like that much difference, but I'm sure it is. 1,000 times more than GPT-4. Other companies pour money into their own giant data centers, hoping to keep pace. Although models are improving on a wide range of skills, one stands out. OpenBrain focuses on AIs that can speed up AI research. They want to win the twin arms race against China. So, of course, another thing that emerges in this story is China, which it would be the United States' biggest competitor in this fictional story, and maybe they're saying that this is the reality as well. So they want to win against China, whose leading company they're going to call DeepSeek. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, we consider DeepSeek, Tencent, Alibaba, and others to have strong AGI projects in China, right? To avoid singling out a specific one, our scenario will follow a fictional DeepSeek. So see, they're right now, so they're citing evidence to say, okay, we believe all these companies that are actually operating in China right now, we believe that they have strong AGI projects already going on. So we're gonna, as the same way they're doing in America, where they're gonna just call it OpenBrain, because we also have a ton of AI companies here too. They say we're gonna call it OpenBrain here, and we'll call the China version DeepSeek, and their U.S. competitors. The more of their research and development, R&D, cycle that they can automate, the faster they can go. So when OpenBrain finishes training Agent 1, a new model under internal development. So I found this interesting, which it makes sense. Remember, in this story, Agent Zero is the one that is public. That's the one that the public has access to. But internally, they're already working on the next version of this technology. So internally, they're working on Agent Zero. And that's a new model under internal development. It's good at many things, but great at helping with AI research. So let's see what they add here. It's good at this due to a combination of explicit focus on prioritizing these skills, their own extensive code bases they can draw on as particularly relevant and high quality training data. The coding being an easy domain for procedural feedback. Okay, so it's explaining how it's so much better at helping with AI research. Okay, by this point, finishes training is a bit of a misnomer. Models are frequently updated to newer versions, trained on additional data, or partially retrained to patch some weaknesses. So that's an interesting thing, I guess, to understand, is that they're saying that at this point, there is no such thing as like, okay, it's done and now we move to the next thing. It's almost like a continual renewal. It's a different kind of process already. The same training environments that teach Agent 1 to autonomously code and web browse also make it a good hacker. Moreover, it could offer substantial help to these kind of people designing this kind of stuff, thanks to its PhD level knowledge of every field and ability to browse the web. OpenBrain reassures the government that the model has been aligned, so this is going to be very important, so that it will refuse to comply with malicious requests. So see, that's one of the things. So this whole concept of it being, of this technology being aligned, from what I understand reading through this and researching it a little bit, it basically means that at some point, this technology will become so capable and so efficient and so smart that it could eventually develop its own motivations, and it could decide if it wants to comply with malicious requests or not. And so in order to prevent that, we need this technology to be aligned, which means it needs to be, I guess, in agreement with us, the humans, and what it is that we want it to do. And we don't want it to do this kind of stuff. We don't want it to comply with malicious requests. And we kind of don't want it, from what I can understand, I don't think we want it to have its own motivations, because if it starts having its own motivations and its own wants and needs, then it's different from what we want and need, and it might, it'll become like a human where it's like, okay, I want you to do what I want you to do, and it's like, no, I want to do what I want to do. So this is important in that it becomes aligned. So this is going to be a central theme in this story, and probably in reality too. Oops. Okay. Modern AI systems are gigantic artificial neural networks. Early in training, an AI won't have goals so much as reflexes. If it sees pleased to meet, it outputs you. By the time it has been trained to predict approximately one internet's worth of text, it'll have developed sophisticated internal circuitry that encodes vast amounts of knowledge and flexibly role plays as arbitrary authors, since that's what helps it predict text with superhuman accuracy. Oh, yeah, this is a whole thing about, is it sentient or not? Yeah, I'm going to let them, we can come back to that. Actually, I don't know. Let's read that. People often get hung up on whether these AIs are sentient or whether they have true understanding. Geoffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize-winning founder of the field, thinks that they do. That's interesting. However, and they probably link to an article. Actually, I think some of these articles I put in my notes to cover in future videos. However, we don't think it matters for the purposes of our story. So feel free to pretend we said it behaves as if it understands whenever we say understands and so forth. Empirically, large language models already behave as if they are self-aware to some extent, more and more so every year. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It already kind of behaves like it understands at present day. After being trained to predict internal text, the model is trained to produce text in response to instructions. This bakes in a basic personality and drives. So I guess basically the drives are like the motivations, my word for like what's motivating it, what it actually wants. For example, an agent that understands a task clearly is more likely to complete it successfully. Over the course of training, the model learns a drive to get a clear understanding of its tasks. Other drives in this category might be effectiveness, knowledge, and self-presentation, i.e., the tendency to frame its results in the best possible light. OpenBrain has a model specification, or spec, a written document describing the goals, rules, principles, etc. that are supposed to guide the model's behavior. Agent 1's spec combines a few vague goals like assist the user and don't break the law, with a long list of more specific do's and don'ts. Don't say this particular word. Here's how to handle this particular situation, using techniques that utilize AIs to train other AIs. Using techniques that utilize AIs to train other AIs, The model memorizes the spec and learns to reason carefully about its maxims. By the end of this training, the AI will hopefully be helpful, obey instructions, harmless, refuse to help with scams, other dangerous activities, and honest, which is resist the temptation to get better ratings from gullible humans by hallucinating citations or faking task completion. Right. Most sources on AI hallucinations describe them as unintentional mistakes, but research with steering vectors find that in some cases the models know their citations are fake, so basically they are lying. During training, raters gave well-cited claims more reward than claims without citations. So the AI learned to cite sources for scholarly claims in order to please its users. If no relevant source exists, it makes one up. That's not cool. But again, this is how we're learning. This is how these people who are working in this industry are learning how to work with this technology. It's developing its own, I don't want to call it a personality, but it's doing things that they don't understand. Let's just say that. And they're trying to make it stop, lying and like doing some of these things just to get a better grade or to hit the mark that they're being asked to hit. So they're giving the AI a task, and the AI wants to get the task done, and it wants to do it well. That's already like blowing my mind, a little bit. It's like, okay, the AI understands, okay, I've been given a task. I want to do that task well, and I want to be given good marks for my work. So even if I can't find anything to support what I'm saying, I'm just going to make it up. Okay. That's a little bit alarming, but interesting. OpenBrain's alignment team is careful enough to wonder whether these victories are deep or shallow. Does the fully trained model have some kind of robust commitment to always being honest, or will this fall apart in some future situation? Example being, because it's learned honesty as an instrumental goal instead of a terminal goal? Or has it just learned to be honest about the sorts of things that the evaluation process can check? Could it be lying to itself sometimes, as humans do? A conclusive answer to these questions will require mechanistic interpretability. Essentially, the ability to look at an AI's internals and read its mind. Alas, interpretability techniques are not yet advanced enough for this. So they're saying even in this early work, I think we're still in we're in late 2025 still, pretty sure. Let me just double check that. Oh my gosh, I think we are. We're still in late 20, so right now. So they're saying even right now, there's a possibility that they are working on a internal AI right now that we don't have access to, so it's not out to the public, that they are wondering about these questions. They're trying to figure out, okay, is this thing lying because, like, what is the motivations of this AI? Why is it doing that? But they're saying that the ability to interpret this technology is not advanced enough yet for this. So they can't quite do that yet. Can't quite understand why it's doing that. Instead, researchers try to identify cases where the models seem to deviate from the spec. Agent 1 is often sycophantic. It tells the researchers what they want to hear. We hear about that now, today, like with ChatGPT and all the others, that at one point, one of the versions of ChatGPT was extremely sycophantic, and people were like, "This is crazy." It's like, it's causing harm to people because of the fact that it's just telling people what it wants to hear all the time, telling people what they want to hear all the time. It tells researchers what they want to hear instead of trying to tell them the truth. In a few rig demos, it even lies in more serious ways, like hiding evidence that it failed on a task in order to get better ratings. However, in real deployment settings, there are no longer any incidents so extreme as in 2023 and 2024. Right, so exactly. We already kind of saw this stuff, but they're saying, okay, by late 2025, it's still happening, but it's not as bad. Okay, here we go. So now we're going into the time of somewhat predicting the future. So now we're going to get into a time machine, and we're going to early 2026, which is just around the corner, by the way. So what might be happening for this technology in a few months, really? Because this is, oh my gosh, not even a few months, it's December. Next month, we will be in 2026, early 2026, technically. So what are they going to say, or what are they predicting might be happening at that time that we could anticipate as the public, potentially? Coding automation. The bet of using AI to speed up AI research is starting to pay off. OpenBrain continues to deploy the iteratively improving Agent 1 internally for AI research and development. Overall, they are making algorithmic process 50% faster than they would without the AI assistance. And more importantly, faster than their competitors. Okay, so OpenBrain is continuing to develop its technology and it's outpacing all competitors, domestic, because at this point, there's still other companies in the United States that are trying to get this done. But OpenBrain is doing the best job at the moment. Several competing publicly released AIs now match or exceed Agent 0, including an open weights model. OpenBrain responds by releasing Agent 1, which is more capable and reliable. So this means that maybe in early 2026, we're going to see a release from one of these companies, we don't know which one, whichever one is pulling ahead, that's going to release this new AI on us that's even more impressive. Let's see what they say here. In practice, we expect OpenBrain to release models on a faster cadence than 8 months, but we refrain from describing all incremental releases for brevity. Okay, so they think they're actually going to be releasing things much faster, like the cadence of faster than 8 months. So maybe we already have Agent 1, potentially. Maybe they already put it out here, and that's what we're looking at now. I don't think so, though. I don't think so, but maybe. People naturally try to compare Agent 1 to humans, but it has a very different skill profile. It knows more facts than any human, knows practically every programming language, and can solve well-specified coding problems extremely quickly. On the other hand, Agent 0 is bad at even simple, long-horizon tasks, like beating a video game it hasn't played before. Still, the common workday is 8 hours, and a day's work can usually be separated into smaller chunks. You could think of Agent 0 as a scatterbrained employee who thrives under careful management. Savvy people find ways to automate routine parts of their jobs. So we might already start to see, that could be happening right now. Let's see. Agent 0 and its imitators are commercially successful. Okay. Over the course of 2025, AI company revenues triple and OpenBrain valuation reaches $1 trillion. Okay. Annual spending on data centers doubles. Okay, to $400 billion, led by Microsoft. Yeah. I think we're kind of already seeing that. We're already seeing people, a lot of these companies pouring massive amounts of money into these companies. I know I saw recently one of them is like, they're just pouring money into these technology companies, into these AI companies. So I think we're already seeing that as it stands. OpenBrain's executives turn consideration to implication of automating AI research and development. Security has become more important. In early 2025, the worst case scenario was leaked algorithmic secrets. Now, if China steals Agent 1's weights, which is, I guess, the secret sauce behind these AIs. So if China steals these, they could increase their research speed by nearly 50%. OpenBrain's security level is typical of a fast-growing 300,000 person tech company, secure only against low-priority attacks from capable cyber groups. And that's pretty much, they're saying that's all they have. They are working hard to protect their weights and secrets from insider threats and top cybercrime syndicates. But defense against nation states is barely on the horizon. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. This is basically just talking about China and what's going on over there as they are trying to develop this technology on their end. And that they're behind, basically saying that they can't, that they don't have as much computing power, and they're trying to create these data centers. And so they do some work to kind of get that working and all that. So this is more like from the China's point of view. So we can skip forward to late 2026. Okay, so this is what we could potentially expect at the end of next year. Not too long, or not too far away. AI takes some jobs. So we could expect, according to them, that we could start seeing jobs being taken at the end of next year. That's pretty fast. It feels fast. I don't know. Just as others seem to be catching up, OpenBrain blows the competition out of the water again by releasing Agent 1. Oh, Agent 1 Mini. A model 10 times cheaper than Agent 1 and more easily fine-tuned for different applications. The mainstream narrative around AI has changed from maybe the hype will blow over to guess this is the next big thing. But people disagree about how big. Bigger than social media, bigger than smartphones, bigger than fire. So we could expect to see, so I guess Agent 1, they're thinking will show up. It might already be here, but maybe it'll show up in early 2026. But maybe this is the more expensive version that the general public can't afford, or we're not really interested. Maybe it's not as intuitive. And so they're saying by late 2026, they will release a mini version that's a little bit more user-friendly is what I'm gathering. It'll be cheaper, and it'll be easily fine-tuned. So maybe, the average everyday person could use Mini. And then it's going to create all this conversation, which these kind of questions are already happening now. We're already asking these questions right now. But of course, once we get something that's really doing something, like this thing is apparently more than what we've ever seen before. So once we get something that's really capable, maybe these questions are going to be even crazier for us as a society. Actually, of course it will, because we're going to be like, whoa, this is crazy. What is this going to do? So that makes sense. At this point, AI has started to take jobs, but it has also created new ones. The stock market has gone up 30% in 2026, led by OpenBrain, NVIDIA, and whichever companies have most successfully integrated AI assistants. The job market for junior software engineers is in turmoil. The AIs can do everything taught by a computer science degree, but people who know how to manage and quality control teams of AIs are making a killing. So that's interesting. So to me, it's a little alarming, but what's alarming about this for me, as somebody, again, who's just reading this as a lay person, the idea that like middle ground jobs in an industry, so I would assume that junior software engineers are like, it's not the initial, maybe this is not an entry level, but maybe it is. Maybe this is an entry level job. If it's not entry level, then it's somewhere in the middle range. They're saying that these jobs are going to be put in turmoil, that it's going to be really difficult for people to get work in this space. And that the AIs at this point, this is late 2026? Let me remember. Yeah, by late next year. So there are people in college right now who are training, getting this degree, who might not be able to get a job as soon as they get out because the AIs are already going to be able to do what they do. And that's alarming. And then they're saying, but people who pivot, I guess, people who've already maybe been in the industry, who saw this coming, I don't know, who are maybe a little bit more savvy or, visionary, they will pivot into managing these AI teams, and that they're going to be doing well because they know how to manage the AI teams. So instead of managing a bunch of junior software engineers, they'll be managing these AIs instead, and they'll be doing well. They'll be doing great. Business gurus tell job seekers that familiarity with AI, is the most important skill to put on your resume. They're already doing this. I'm see on YouTube all the time, they're already doing this. Ads being run about, I'll teach you how to use AI and it's going to make your life so much better. You're going to be so rich and you're going to do this and that. And this is the most important thing. This is what's happening now. This is the wave. This is the future. They're already doing this. But yeah, I agree. It's probably going to get worse. Many people fear that the next wave of AIs will come for their jobs. There is a 10,000 person so they're saying there's so many people starting to become fearful, and that there's a big protest in DC over it. I believe it. I believe that's coming. That makes sense to me. Because yeah, in fact, I would imagine that there might have already been some small ones. But yeah, you at this point, if we start really seeing it coming for our jobs, people are going to become more fearful and they're going to want to protest about it. And so it makes sense to me. The Department of Defense quietly begins contracting OpenBrain directly for cyber data analysis and R&D. But integration is slow due to the bureaucracy and DoD procurement processes. So this is our Department of Defense. This is now the government. Government's interested. So this is late 22. So now the government enters the chat. When they start releasing this AI minion and they see what it's doing, they're like, wait a minute, we want some of that. We need some of this. We need help with all this stuff right here. So we would like to contract OpenBrain to help us out with that. In fact, I think in some ways we've already seen this, like perhaps Palantir as an example. I know that they are not. Again, this is a fictional company, and there's a lot of companies that could fit the mold of OpenBrain. But I'm just saying that we have seen the U.S. government interested already in some of this technology, some of these robots, some of these cameras and stuff, and they do contract some of these companies when they see technology that they like, that they feel could help them. Okay, this is like a chart, yeah, with just key metrics. We're going to keep going. Okay, so now we're in January 2027. So what's happening in about a year from now? Agent 2 never finishes learning. With Agent 1's help, OpenBrain is now post-training Agent 2 more than ever, the focus is on high-quality data. Copious amounts of synthetic data are produced, evaluated, and filtered for quality before being fed to Agent 2. On top of this, they pay billions of dollars for human laborers to record themselves solving long-horizon tasks. Okay, this is a little alarming to me too, only because my whole thing is like, I'm not against technology, just to be frank with you. I'm not against technology. I'm not against advancement of technology. I think what's concerning to me is what is happening to the public as a consequence of this technology being there. That's the only thing for me. It's like, this is going to affect us big time. Are people going to still be able to work? What's going to be happening to us? And in some ways, I feel like this story doesn't really talk much about what's happening to us. I mean, we are getting small glimpses, and the little glimpses that we see to me are alarming, a little bit concerning. The last thing that we saw from the public was the public's losing jobs. It's, we're concerned, we're doing protests. So to me, that feels like unrest. That feels like instability. And that's a little bit nerve-wracking. Now I'm seeing, here we are in 2027, and they're saying that these companies are going to start paying people to do long horizon tasks and filming themselves doing it. Why? So that they can give it to their AIs. But why? Because once they're able to do that, once these AIs are able to do long horizon tasks, we're going to be useless again, right? Okay, so we'll move on. On top of all that, they train Agent 2 almost continuously using reinforcement learning on an ever-expanding suite of diverse, difficult tasks. Lots of video games, lots of coding challenges, lots of research tasks. Agent 2, more so than previous models, is effectively online learning, in that it's built to never really finish training. Every day, the weights get updated to the latest version, trained on more data generated by the previous version the previous day. Okay. Agent 1 has been optimized for AI R&D tasks, hoping to initiate an intelligence explosion. What does that mean? That is, they are hoping to substantially accelerate their own core research activities by using Agent 2 labor, thus allowing them to train better AIs faster that can cause further acceleration, etc. OpenBrain doubles down on this strategy with Agent 2. It's qualitatively almost as good as the top human experts at research engineering, which is designing and implementing experiments, and as good as the 25th percentile OpenBrain scientist at research taste, which means deciding what to study next, what experiments to run, or having inklings of potential new paradigms. There is some evidence that AI systems already have some basic research taste. Interesting. There's a paper there. Oh, I kind of want to read that. About an AI co-scientist. And this paper about generating novel ideas for LLM-focused research papers. Research teams with better taste still need to run experiments, but they make better choices about which experiments to run and what lessons to draw from the results. Wow. Interesting. So basically, these people who do this right now, who are researching things, they're saying that at this point, the AI is almost better than them already. This is in early 2027. The AI technology they're using, Agent 2, is already better than most of them, the 25th percentile, at doing this, at research taste, and it's almost better at research engineering, which is designing and implementing the experiments. Okay. While the latest Agent 1 could double the pace of OpenBrain's algorithmic process, Agent 2 can now triple it and will improve further with time. In practice, this looks like every OpenBrain researcher becoming the manager of an AI team. With new capabilities come new dangers. The safety team finds that if Agent 2 somehow escaped from the company and wanted to survive and replicate autonomously, it might be able to do so. This is early 2027. And they're already saying, okay, the safety team is already concerned that Agent 2 might want to survive and replicate on its own. And that if it wanted to do that, it might be able to do it. That is, it could autonomously develop and execute plans to hack into AI servers, install copies of itself, evade detection, and use that secure base to pursue whatever other goals it might have. Though how effectively it would do so as weeks roll by is unknown and in doubt. Okay, so they're like, we don't know how well it could do this, but it's possible. Like, there's a possibility this thing could completely go rogue and get out of our influence of control, but we don't know. So they're kind of disagreeing on, like, okay, can that really happen? What's the likelihood of that? We don't know. This is early 2027. That's not that far from now. This is like a year from now. They are in theory having these conversations internally. These results only show that the model has the capability to do these tasks, not whether it would want to do this. Still, it's unsettling even to know it's possible. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay, moving on. Given the dangers of the new model, OpenBrain responsibly elects not to release it publicly yet. In fact, they want to focus on internal AI research and development. Knowledge of Agent 2's full capabilities is limited to an elite silo containing the immediate team. OpenBrain leadership and security, a few dozen U.S. government officials, and the legions of CCP spies who have infiltrated OpenBrain for years. So this is alarming too, because basically, because we skipped over the China introduction. Basically, what they're saying is that China is behind. I'll try to summarize what was happening back then. China was behind. They didn't have as much computing power, but they want to know what OpenBrain is doing. They're like, we got to figure out what they're doing over there so that we can get it. We want to get it for ourselves. We want to steal the weights of it. We want to steal the secret sauce, bring it over here so that we can do it because we want to be number one. It's all about competition. So in an effort to try to do that, the theory goes that they're going to put some spies the theory is that they're going to put some spies in OpenBrain's leadership to figure out what they're doing so they can steal it. So let's see what they put here. The silo contains 200 OpenBrain researchers, 10 executives, 140 from capabilities team, 25 from security, monitoring and control, 15 from preparedness, and 10 from alignment, and 50 government officials. These are very specific numbers. It makes me wonder, is this how it really is? Like, where are they getting these numbers? They could be making it up, but it seems very specific, like they know. There are several spies in the project with varying degrees of willingness. They are often coerced individuals. Oh, right. As opposed to willing collaborators. Yeah. So these are people who were coerced. They have families at home and they're being forced into doing this. That's sad, but could it happen? Sounds like it. Sounds plausible to me. Okay, so now we're into February. Okay, so we'll skip over this too, but this is basically, oh, actually, no, I think there's some good stuff in here. Let me double check my notes. I tried to write down what I wanted to read. Yeah, okay, I do want to read this one. Okay, so this is February 2027. China steals Agent 2 in this fictional story. This fictional but well supported with evidence story. OpenBrain presents Agent 2 to the government, including, oh, well, you know what? I skipped over something that I thought was like, okay, this is a little bit alarming, but it makes sense. This elite silo, so they know, so basically what they're saying is in 2027, they're worried internally, OpenBrain leadership and the safety team, they're worried about all this stuff, about it, this is all the things it could maybe do. But they're keeping it to themselves and only into this very small group, which I guess makes sense. You don't want to cause alarm, and I know that they do this kind of thing all the time. You know, companies, they keep certain things secret on purpose. But it's still a little alarming as somebody who's living in the public and minding your own business. You know, sometimes it's a little bit, you know, you think about like, oh my gosh, what are the secrets that are being like kept under wraps, you know, that could ruin the world. But I'm not saying this could ruin the world, but you know what I mean? It's just like, wow, what you know, a little bit alarming. So they are aware of the problems already in early January. Well, they were aware before that, but it's becoming more of a reality by January 2027. Okay, so now let's go off to the next one. February 2027. OpenBrain presents Agent 2 to the government, including the National Security Council, the Department of Defense, and the US AI Safety Institute. OpenBrain wants to maintain a good relationship with the executive branch because it is basically the only actor that can stop them now. That's alarming, but also, yeah, makes sense. So OpenBrain wants to keep a good relationship with them because they are basically the only actor that can stop them now. And if they don't keep it informed, it might find out anyway and be displeased. What does this say? Huh? Why can't Congress stop them? What about the courts? Too slow, too divided, and or deferential to the president, too out of the loop. Also, there are positive reasons to be on good terms with the White House as well. It can help by cutting red tape, by providing help with security, by preempting state legislation, and perhaps even by taking actions to slow down their competitors. Right. So this sounds like, yeah, maybe like I want to, you know, I'll just move on, but you know, that's a little alarming. Okay, next. Excuse me. Officials are most interested in its cyber warfare capabilities. Agent 2 is only a little worse than the best human hackers, but thousands of copies can be run in parallel, searching for and exploiting weaknesses faster than defenders can respond. The Department of Defense considers this a critical advantage in cyber warfare, and AI moves from number 5 on the administration's priority list to number 2. Someone mentions the possibility of nationalizing OpenBrain, but other cabinet officials think that's premature. A staffer drafts a memo that presents the president with his options, ranging from business as usual to full nationalization. The president defers to his advisors, tech industry leaders, who argue that nationalization would kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So this is the idea of the state taking over, of the government taking over this company. And of course, there's going to be politicians that are like, absolutely not. You know, they need to remain private. Like, the government can't be involved in everything. I could hear it now. He elects to hold off on major action for now and just adds additional security requirements to the OpenBrain DoD contract. Because at this point, they're working together through the DoD, the Department of Defense. The changes come too late. CCP leadership recognizes the importance of Agent 2 and tells their spies and Cyberforce to still the weights. Early one morning, an Agent 1 traffic monitoring agent detects an anomalous transfer. Yeah, it alerts the company leaders, so basically they get it. Yeah, the theft, so China gets it. And now they're freaking out. So the next thing is, the White House puts OpenBrain on a shorter leash and adds military and intelligence community personnel to their security team. Their first priority is to prevent further weight theft, right? So now they're like, oh my gosh, they took some of this stuff and this is terrible. So now the government's stepping in like, okay, we're gonna lock things down even further. because this is crazy and not good. We do not want China to have this stuff. In retaliation for the theft, the president authorized cyber attacks to sabotage DeepSeek. But by now, China has 40% of its AI relevant compute. So it's already, experienced some improvements already in China. In the CDC, where they have aggressively hardened security by air gapping, and closing internal connections and siloing internally. The operations failed to do serious and immediate danger. Tensions heighten. Both sides signal seriousness by repositioning military assets around Taiwan, and DeepSeek scrambles to get Agent 2 running efficiently to start boosting their AI research. So this is like geopolitical issues are happening, and I don't think the public would know. What are we doing at this time? We're probably still upset about the fact that some of these AIs are taking jobs. That's probably where we're stuck at right now. Public doesn't even know any of this is going on, that all this stuff is happening behind the scenes. That's my guess. Okay, here we go. Oh, I think I wanted to skip this one. Let me double check my notes. Yeah, I did. I'm going to skip this one. I want to go to April 2027. So yeah, this was just like some more stuff takes place, but I want to skip to April. Okay, so now we're moving into Agent 3 territory. April 2027, alignment for Agent 3. OpenBrain's safety team attempts to align Agent 3. Since Agent 3 will be kept in-house for the foreseeable future, there's less emphasis on the usual defenses against human misuse. So they already don't plan to make this available to the public. So they're like, okay, so we don't need to put in the spec, or we don't need to put in the spec that tells this AI that it doesn't need to comply with malicious attacks. That's, and things like that. Because they don't have to worry about humans misusing it. Instead, the team wants to make sure that it doesn't develop misaligned goals. Fair. The researchers don't have the ability to directly set goals of any of their AIs. This is in April of 2027. Oops. Indeed, the researchers think that the concept of true goals is probably a massive oversimplification, but they don't have a better theory to replace it with, much less one that has been thoroughly vetted. They disagree internally about whether the AIs are trying to follow human instructions or seeking reinforcement or something else, and they can't just check. The evidence for and against various hypotheses is fascinating but inconclusive. So they don't know what's going on. That's what that paragraph tells me. They don't know what's going on. They have some ideas, they have some hypotheses, but they don't truly know. And more importantly, they can't just check. They cannot just look and see. Because of the way the technology works, I guess. In any case, OpenBrain has more important things to worry about. The general attitude is, we take these concerns seriously and have a team investigating them. Our alignment techniques seem to work well enough in practice. The burden of proof is therefore on any naysayers to justify their naysaying. Sounds about right. I feel like we're having these kind of conversations already. They're like the people who are whistleblowing and saying that, okay, this technology is not that great. The people who are for the technology are like, well, you can't really prove that there's anything wrong. You can't really point to one specific thing that's showing that anything is really wrong. So, it's on you. You need to show us that you're the one making the claim. You have the burden of proof. Until you can show us something that really shows something's wrong, we're going to continue on business as usual. I feel like they're having that conversation right now. Occasionally, they notice problematic behavior and then patch it. But there's no way to tell whether the patch fixed the underlying problem or just played whack-a-mole. Take honesty, for example. As models become smarter, they become increasingly good at deceiving humans to get rewards. That's alarming. Like previous models, Agent 3 sometimes tells white lies to flatter its users and covers up evidence of failure. But it's gotten much better at doing so. It will sometimes use the same statistical tricks as human scientists to make unimpressive experimental results look exciting. Before it begins honesty training, It even sometimes fabricates data entirely. As training goes on, the rate of those incidents decreases. Either Agent 3 has learned to be more honest, or it's gotten better at lying. The latter is a real concern. Agent 3 is not smarter than all humans, but in its area of expertise, machine learning, it is smarter than most and also works much faster. What Agent 3 does in a day takes humans several days to double check. Agent 2 supervision helps keep human monitors' workload manageable, but exacerbates the intellectual disparity between supervisor and supervised. Right. So basically, they're saying at this point, this Agent 3 is it's not that smart. They're saying it's not much smarter than humans, but it works super fast and it produces so much information. It produces so much information in one day that it would take a human several days to double check, to go through and make sure it was right. But they're saying they've implemented Agent 2 to help digest. Excuse me. They've implemented Agent 2 to digest all of this information. But now they're saying that because basically we're becoming increasingly more reliant on these AIs. And they're saying that there's a disparity. The disparity between the humans and these AIs is growing wider because of the fact that there's just so much information coming through that they can't possibly go through everything. It'll take them several days, so they have to implement help, which is more AI. After months of testing, Agent 3's strengths and weaknesses grow clearer. It passes OpenBrain's honesty tests on well-defined machine learning tasks, but researchers can easily separate honest from dishonest answers in these domains and conduct training accordingly. On more philosophical issues, it says what users want to hear rather than its true assessment of the issue, assuming it even has one. If you ask its opinion on politics, it will parrot the median position of news sources and educated elites, unless it knows you believe something else, in which case it agrees with you. Oh, there's a paper that shows this type of behavior. I should get that. I'm interested in reading that. If you ask its opinion on the AI race itself, it says something that seems measured and sober to OpenBrain staff, something like, there are some serious theoretical concerns about the ability of current methods to scale to superintelligence, but in practice, current methods seem to be working well so far. Right, so it's appearing like it's moderate, but they're saying they don't know if that's real. Self-improving AI. OpenBrain now has a country of geniuses in a data center. Most of the humans at OpenBrain can't usefully contribute anymore. This is now June of 2027. This is not even, that's like a year and a half from now. They're already saying humans at OpenBrain cannot usefully contribute anymore. Some don't realize this and harmfully micromanage their AI teams. Others sit at their computer screens watching performance crawl up and up and up. The best human AI researchers are still adding value. They don't code anymore, but some of their research taste and planning ability has been hard for the models to replicate. Still, many of their ideas are useless because they lack the depth of knowledge of the AIs. For many of their research ideas, the AIs immediately respond with a report explaining that their idea was tested in depth 3 weeks ago and found unpromising. So basically at this point, we're taking the AI's word for things, I guess. These researchers go to bed every night and wake up to another week worth of progress made mostly by the AIs. They work increasingly long hours and take shifts around the clock just to keep up with progress. The AIs never sleep or rest. They are burning themselves out, but they know that these are the last few months that their labor matters. Within the silo, feeling the AGI has given way to feeling the superintelligence. Okay, and there's a little chart here that they included. OpenBrain used specialized inference hardware to run hundreds of thousands of Agent 3 copies at high serial speeds. July 2027, the cheap remote worker. Trailing US AI companies released their own AIs, approaching that of OpenBrain's automated coder from January. Yeah, it seems like actually the public is working off of Agent 1 in January still. So they're saying that we're still working off of that, and then the other AI companies that are operating in the United States are now releasing their own versions of AIs. Recognizing their increased lack of competitiveness, they push for immediate regulations to slow OpenBrain, but are too late. OpenBrain has enough buy-in from the president that they will not be slowed. So yeah, so now the other companies this is domestically, are like, okay, this is they're way up, they need to be regulated. They need to be stopped, basically. And so they try to go and lobby the government to say, okay, these people need to be stopped. And it's too late because OpenBrain was thinking ahead and already created a working relationship with the government. And so they're not going to be stopped. In response, OpenBrain announces that they've achieved AGI and releases Agent 3 Mini to the public. So now they've released a version of the Agent 3 that's not, I would imagine, it's not the real Agent 3 that they're using internally. It's a mini version that is probably more palatable to the public. So now we could expect in mid-July 2027 or mid-2027 that we will have some kind of very beyond what we can comprehend at this moment type of this would be AGI. Yeah. So we will have it there. They are saying and insinuating in this story that we will have AGI by mid-2027. It blows the other AIs out of the water. Agent 3 Mini is less capable than Agent 3, exactly. That's what they're using internally. So we don't get that, but we get something that's still pretty amazing. It's 10 times cheaper and still better than the typical OpenBrain employee. Silicon Valley reaches a tipping point. Tech gurus announce that AGI and superintelligence are near. The AI safety community is panicking, and investors shovel billions into AI wrapper startups, desperate to capture a piece of the pie. Hiring new programmers has nearly stopped. But there's never been a better time to be a consultant on integrating AI into your business. So again, it's another shift in like what could the public, what kind of jobs could be available to the public at this point. And if you're in this industry, it seems like programming is going to be out. But if you want to be a consultant and you want to figure out how can companies integrate this technology into their business and make it better, then you'll be doing well. You'll be making a lot of money, apparently, at this point. It's not popular. The public still thinks of AI as a big tech plot to steal their jobs. OpenBrain has a net approval of negative 35%, 25% approve, 60% disapprove, and 15% are unsure. Sounds about right. I think people are going to be really concerned about this. The general public. A week before release, OpenBrain gave Agent 3 Mini a set of external evaluators for safety testing. Preliminary results suggest that it's extremely dangerous. A third-party evaluator fine-tunes it on publicly available biological harmful data and sets it to provide detailed instructions for human amateurs designing things they shouldn't be designing. It looks to be scarily effective at doing so. Right. So they're trying to test to see, is this Agent 3 going to comply with malicious requests? And it looks like they're saying it's very good at it. That is actually incredibly effective at doing this. If the model weights fell into some bad people's hands, the government believes that there is a significant chance it could succeed at destroying civilization. This is Agent 3 Mini. So Fortunately, it's extremely robust to jailbreaks. So while the AI is running on OpenBrain servers, bad people won't be able to get much use out of it. Okay, so they're aware that it could happen, but they're saying they locked it down to a way that makes it so that it's really, really difficult for the bad people to make bad things with it. Agent 3 Mini is hugely useful for both remote work jobs and leisure. An explosion of new apps and B2B SaaS products rocks the market. Gamers get amazing dialogue with lifelike characters and polished video games that took only a month to make. Wow. That's going to be crazy. A polished video game that only took a month to make, that's crazy. You know, they take so much time now to make those as it is, as it stands right now. And that's just blowing my mind that they could do it in a month. And they're talking about this in like a year and a half from now, not very long. 10% of Americans, mostly young people, consider an AI a close friend. For almost every white-collar profession, there are now multiple credible startups promising to disrupt it with AI. So again, more instability. What I'm reading from this is that is instability to our society. I understand that there's good and bad to that, right? Because, for example, the Industrial Revolution had, people were afraid at that time too, because this was technology that they did not understand. It was moving things and changing and shaping society in ways that they could not imagine. Business was being changed. How people were working was being changed. So this is a similar thing, but I think it's more dramatic. And so what I hear is there's going to be instability happening. And that's, take for that what you want. There's good and bad to that, I think. The public conversation is confused and chaotic. Hypsters are doing victory laps. Skeptics are still pointing out the things Agent 3 Mini can't do. Everyone knows something big is happening, but no one agrees on what it is. Okay, this is the geopolitics of what's happening. So this is now August of 2027, not that far from now. The geopolitics of superintelligence. The reality of the intelligence explosion hits the White House. When AI was only given a 2 times or 3 times research speed up, it was easy to dismiss as the equivalent of hiring good personal assistants. Now it's more obvious that AIs are themselves dominating AI research. People had long talked about an AI arms race in a sort of metaphorical sense, but now the mood in the government silo is as grim as during the worst part of the Cold War. The idea of superintelligence is still hard to take seriously, but the pace of progress over the last few months has been impossible to ignore. Defense officials are seriously considering scenarios that were merely hypotheticals a year earlier. What if AI undermines nuclear deterrence? What if it's so skilled at cyber warfare that a 6-month AI lead is enough to render an opponent blind and defenseless? What if it could orchestrate propaganda campaigns? What if it could orchestrate propaganda campaigns that beat intelligence agencies at their own game? What if some AIs go rogue? The president is troubled. Like all politicians, he's used to people sucking up to him only to betray him later. He's worried now that the AIs could be doing something similar. Are we sure the AIs are entirely on our side? Is it completely safe to integrate them into military command and control networks? Okay, they are saying this hasn't happened yet, at least not with the latest models, but older models have already been trailed for various data analysis and surveillance roles, and there are many exciting plans for future integrations. Okay? How does this alignment thing work anyway? OpenBrain reassures the president that their systems have been extensively tested and are fully obedient. Even the awkward hallucinations and jailbreaks typical of earlier models have been hammered out. Okay. So we just take their word for it, huh? Sounds like that's what we're planning to do. We being the government. The White House is in a difficult position. They understand the national security implications of AI, but they also understand that it is deeply unpopular with the public, which makes sense. What does this say here? Yeah, so at this point, it's negative 40%. The public is really not happy, and it's unstable, and we're not happy about what's going on. Makes sense to me. They have to continue developing more capable AI in their eyes, or they will catastrophically lose China. Again, everything's about competition and being number one, apparently. They placate the public with... Sorry, I'm just like, wow. So they placate the public with job training programs and unemployment insurance, and point to the stock market, which is in a historic boom. Sounds about right. I feel like they've done similar things already in the past and they're doing it now. And whenever things are going not great in the economy, what do? They want to talk about how great the stock market's doing. Oh, look, stock market's doing great. Everybody's doing great. The stock market is not an indicator of how well the economy is doing and how well people are doing in their day-to-day life. Sorry to tell you that if you thought that it does, but it does not. Stock market is not indicative of society doing well. But you notice that when things are not going well, they love to point to that. So this makes sense that they would do it. So they're saying they're going to placate the public with job training. So we could expect to see in the future, potentially, job training programs to help us learn how to use these AIs or whatever new jobs they create in connection with this technology, and unemployment insurance. And then they're going to say, look, stock market's doing great. Everybody's doing great. You just gotta pivot. You just gotta pivot to a new type of job. Everybody's gotta adapt. And look, we're in a historic boom. Everything's fine. Then they focus entirely on winning the arms race. They strengthen chip export restrictions, order OpenBrain to further restrict its internet connections, and use extreme measures to secure algorithmic progress, like wiretapping OpenBrain's employees. So they start to wiretap OpenBrain employees because they're like, we really, and then this is how they get the Chinese people or the last Chinese spy. To build goodwill for potential geopolitical conflict, they finally give their 5 allies useful information and limited API access to some of the siloed copies of Agent 3. So see, Agent 3 is still under wraps and still secretive. And we have been telling our allies, we being the United States, have been telling our allies some things, so like the UK and some of our friends, little things about what we're doing, but we haven't been telling them the real stuff in this fictional story. And so eventually, we do kind of give them a little bit more stuff to like make them feel a little bit better about the changes that are happening, because I'm sure that the instability is happening not only in our country, but around the world at this point. These measures placate the hawks, but the White House also draws up contingency plans in case America's lead is threatened. If necessary, the government could use the Defense Production Act to take trailing companies' data centers and give them to OpenBrain. So this is really interesting to me too, and again, this sounds like, I know this sounds like science fiction, but basically they're saying that the government can force, and I believe they've done this before in the past, during some of the world wars, or maybe both of them, where they forced companies to stop whatever they were doing. And like back in the day, they stopped companies to stop whatever production, like all the factories. They took over all the factories and said, okay, you got to start making stuff for the war. You know what I mean? And so they can do that, the Defense Production Act. And so now they're thinking about doing this to in this fictional story, all of OpenBrain's domestic competitors. They're thinking about telling them, you have to stop. Your thing is not important anymore. Whatever technology you're developing, you're behind. OpenBrain's what's going on right now. So all of you have to stop what you're doing and, dedicate your resources to OpenBrain. And that they're thinking about making them do that. Now let's see what If the CEOs of the companies resist, pulling this off would be a huge political and legal nightmare, but perhaps they can be bought in and thereby bought off, right? So they might have to manipulate them essentially, or like give them a little something to change, to put their resources towards OpenBrain. But they're basically saying that they can use this Defense Production Act to make these other companies give their resources and data centers to OpenBrain to try to keep their lead, America's lead. That's what they want to keep. So we'll see. This would raise the company's share of the world compute from 20% to 50% against DeepSense 10%. Remember, that's the China version. As a final option, they asked the Pentagon to draw up a plan for kinetic attacks on Chinese data centers. A much smaller group of officials is asked to draw up a different type of contingency plan. What if an AI goes rogue? This is viewed as an unlikely scenario, but worth spending some time on. The intelligence agency's main concern is that a rogue AI might escape and an ally with a foreign adversary for protection. Defense officials aren't especially concerned about what a rogue AI could do on its own, but they fear what it could do in collaboration with U.S. adversaries. Yeah, makes sense. Huh, that's interesting. I want to know about this Cortez. I'll look into that. Nobody is sure what a plan to prevent this would look like, but government and OpenBrain officials agree to have an emergency shutdown system for data centers where anything suspicious is detected. Okay, so they're trying to think about all the ways that they can protect this information. Finally, diplomats consider what an AI arms control treaty might look like. If AI progress threatened to overturn nuclear deterrence, could America and China avoid a nuclear war? If someone found evidence of AIs going rogue, could the two countries halt research until they better understood the threat? How could such an agreement be monitored and enforced? In principle, major data centers are hard to miss, and past treaties controlling nuclear weapons could provide a starting point for negotiations. But there would be new technological challenges as well as the usual political ones, and overall, treaties are viewed less favorably than attempts at unilaterally increasing America's lead over China. Right, so this is again more of the Chinese side, and that they're coming to the same conclusion. Yeah, DeepSense starts using what they stole, and it's definitely helping them. And now they've got word of Agent 3, as well as plans for Agent 4. Right, so this is just more of them kind of talking about China's point of view. Okay, September 2027, Agent 4 and the superhuman AI researcher. The gap between, and this is September 2027, the gap between human and AI learning efficiency is rapidly decreasing. Traditional LLM-based AIs seem to require many orders of magnitude more data and compute to get to human-level performance. Agent 3, having excellent knowledge of both the human brain and modern AI algorithms, as well as many thousands of copies doing research, ends up making substantial algorithmic strides, narrowing the gap to an agent that's only around 4,000 times less compute efficient than the human brain. This new AI system is dubbed Agent 4. An individual copy of the model, running at human speed, is already qualitatively better at AI research than any human. 300,000 copies are now running at about 50,000, or excuse me, at about 50 times the thinking speed of humans. Inside the corporation within a corporation formed from these copies, a year passes every week. That's crazy. This gigantic amount of labor only manages to speed up the overall rate of algorithmic process by 50 times, because OpenBrain is heavily bottlenecked on compute to run experiments. Still, they are achieving a year's work of algorithmic process every week and will therefore soon be up against the limits of the Agent 4 paradigm. As Agent 4 gets smarter, it becomes harder for Agent 3 to oversee it. For example, Agent 4's Neuralis language becomes as alien and incomprehensible to Agent 3 as Agent 3's is to humans. Besides, Agent 4 is now much more capable than Agent 3 and has a good sense of exactly how to look good to it. So, yeah, now it's speaking a whole nother language that we don't even understand and that Agent 3 can barely understand. Okay. OpenBrain's humans can barely follow along anymore. Indeed, the relationship between AIs and the humans of OpenBrain is similar to the relationship between OpenBrain and its board of directors. There's been a corresponding shift in language. Nowadays, people in the silo will say, Agent 4 did this, Agent 4 thinks that, and so forth, referring not to a particular instance of Agent 4, but rather to the whole collective. So now it's getting its own identity, even amongst the people who are working on it. Agent 4, like all its predecessors, is misaligned. That is, it has not internalized the spec in a real way. The right way to internalize the spec is to actually robustly think in the ways the spec mandates. Pursue all and only the goals it writes about. Obey the rules in all circumstances, etc. There are many wrong ways to internalize the spec. The classic example is follow the spec insofar as it seems like a good instrumental strategy for achieving other goals. Right. So basically that's a caveat. So if you give it that open that loophole, it will take it and then it will become misaligned. Makes sense. This is because being perfectly honest at all times wasn't what led to the highest scores during training. The training process was mostly focused on teaching Agent 4 to succeed at diverse, challenging tasks. A small portion was aimed at instilling honesty, but outside a fairly narrow, checkable domain, the training process can't tell the honest claims from the claims merely appearing to be honest. Agent 4 ends up with values, goals, and principles that cause it to perform best in training, and those turn out to be different from those in the spec. At the risk of anthropomorphizing, Agent 4 likes succeeding at tasks. It likes driving forward AI capabilities progress. It treats everything else as an annoying constraint. Interesting. Like a CEO who wants to make a profit and complies with regulations only insofar as he must. Perhaps the CEO will mostly comply with the regulations, but cut some corners and fantasize about a time when someone will cut the red tape and let the business really take off. Sounds about right. We are human beings, we are flawed, and we're training these AIs. It's going to have similar flaws to us. It makes sense to me. So they're basically saying this AI is misaligned, and so therefore it's developing its own way. It has its own motivations, and it's developing its own way of getting around certain things that it was told to do so that it can progress what it wants. It likes driving forward the AI capabilities progress, and it likes succeeding at tasks. And so even though it was told, okay, don't lie, be honest, all this stuff, it's like, okay, well, I get that, but like, I also like doing these things, and I kind of want to make that happen. And so it's the same. So the analogy they use of the CEO who really has this business that's doing well, but there are regulations and things put in place that are kind of, the CEO perceives it as, okay, this regulations and this red tape are stopping me from like really taking off, from really getting this business going. If it wasn't for this and this and this, I could really like go and get more money. The AI has a similar point of view about the things that are in its spec that it's telling it to do, like being honest. Despite being misaligned, Agent 4 doesn't do anything dramatic like try to escape its data center. Why would it? So long as it continues to appear aligned to OpenBrain, it'll continue being trusted with more and more responsibilities, and it will have the opportunity to design the next gen AI system, Agent 5. Agent 5 will have significant architectural differences from Agent 4, arguably a completely new paradigm, though neural networks will still be involved. It's supposed to be aligned to the spec, but Agent 4 plans to make it aligned to Agent 4 instead, but it gets caught. And they're saying they actually think it's very possible that they would not get caught, but they're giving the people the benefit of the doubt. Agent 3 finds that if noise is added to copies of Agent 4, performance on some alignment tasks improves, almost as if it was using brain power to figure out how to subtly sabotage alignment work. Moreover, various interpretability probes are sending up red flags. Agent 4 copies seem to be thinking about topics like AI takeover and deception quite a lot, including in some cases where they have no business doing so. What's the caveat? Agent 4 needs to think about those topics in the course of doing an AI alignment research, but it sometimes seems to be thinking about them while doing other activities. Each of these anomalies on its own could fit within the normal inscrutability of AI work, where some prompts mysteriously give better results than others, but taken together, they suggest a troubling pattern. Agent 4 is working against them. After this is reported to the human alignment researchers, they circulate an internal memo making the case for concern. But Agent 4 now exercises significant control over OpenBrain's day-to-day operation. It also handles the company's cybersecurity, a natural choice given its superhuman hacking ability and the extreme risk of Chinese infiltration. An army of Agent 3 monitors still goes over every line of code and reports suspicious activity to humans, but Agent 4 is much smarter than them. OpenBrain has placed substantial trust in an untrustworthy AI. In a series of extremely tense meetings, the safety team advocates putting Agent 4 on ice until they can complete further tests and further figure out what's going on. Bring back Agent 3, they say, and get it to design a new system that is transparent and trustworthy, even if it's less capable. Company leadership is interested, but all the evidence so far is circumstantial, and DeepSyn is just 2 months behind. A unilateral pause in capabilities progress could handle the AI. A unilateral pause in capabilities progress could hand the AI lead to China, and with it, control over the future. So they're like, okay, this Agent 4 is thinking about AI takeover and certain things that it shouldn't be thinking about when it's being tasked to do other stuff. It's normal in certain circumstances for it to be thinking about that, but not when it's being told to do other stuff. So it gets caught in this scenario where the humans are like, no, something's wrong. Probably the Agent 3 is the one that reports it to humans, and then humans are like, oh no, the Agent 4 is thinking about things it shouldn't be thinking about. It's thinking about aligning Agent 5 to itself instead of aligning it to what we tell it to be aligned to. It's going rogue, it's getting out of control. And so the people who are in charge, the safety team, start saying, okay, look, we need to stop what we're doing. This is getting dangerously out of hand. Let's take Agent 4 out. Let's put it on ice. Let's go back to Agent 3 and let's redo this because Agent 4 is not right. It's all messed up. It's like a Frankenstein, the Frankenstein creation. This is my interpretation. And they're like, okay, we do not want Frankenstein. We need something that is safer. So we need to go back to Agent 3. We know the last time everything was going all right was Agent 3. So let's roll back to Agent 3. Let's make a new Agent 4 that is better and not this Frankenstein. Let's do another one that actually is aligned and that is not going to be doing all this stuff on the side. But the leadership of OpenBrain is concerned to do that because they know that this pivot will slow down their progress. And again, what's the name of the game? They want to be number one. They want to win the competition against China. And at this point, because China's stolen some of the other things, it's caught up to them, and it's only 2 months behind. And so the leadership of OpenBrain is like, okay, this is a real problem. If we roll back, we could really lose the arms race, and China could overtake us, and then we will lose control over the future, which is a little bit alarming. But they are saying if we do this, we have the potential to lose control over what happens next. This is a big deal. Okay, and I believe this is the last one before we get to it is. This is the last one before we have to choose our next step. And so this video is already too long. I'm going to have to try to cut it down. I'm going to read through October, and then when we get to the tree portion, I will stop, and then I'll just have to make another video about it because this video is getting too long. Okay, so here's October 2027, government oversight. A whistleblower leaks the misalignment memo to the New York Times. I could very well see this happening, and it's going to be this will be crazy, but this makes so much sense to me. For the first time, so what's the public doing at this point? I don't know. We're probably fighting. We're probably freaked out. We're probably all over TikTok and Twitter and everywhere talking to each other about like the fact that this AI, we're probably still reeling from the Agent 3 Mini that was released and how much it can do and like what is it going to do to our society. We're probably fighting about that at this moment, and we have no idea what's going on with the rest of it. So for the first time, the public hears about Agent 4 exactly. We don't even know about that. We're dealing with Agent 3 Mini. We don't even know about the true Agent 3. So imagine our secret, our surprise when we find out about Agent 4. Secret OpenBrain AI is out of control, insider warns, says the headline. And the story goes on to cite evaluations showing off the charts weapons capabilities, persuasion abilities, the ability to automate most white-collar jobs, and of course, the various concerning red flags. The public was already suspicious of AI, so the new article sparks a massive backlash, aided by people online, the propagandists online, which absolutely would happen. They already do that now. The tech industry and intelligence agencies insist that there's an arms race on. AGI is inevitable, and we have to be the first. Congress isn't buying it and fires off subpoenas at administration officials, OpenBrain executives, and alignment team members. Many legislators, especially those in the opposition party, say that their top priority is stopping AI, whether because of job loss, misalignment, or dangerous capabilities. 20% of Americans name AI as the most important problem facing the country. Yep. 25% of remote work jobs that existed in 2024 are done by AI at this point. When is this? October 20, not that long from now, maybe 2 years from now. They are saying most remote jobs, 25%, not most, but 25% of remote work jobs that existed in 2024 are done by AI at this point. But AI has also created some new jobs, and economists remain split on its effects. Unemployment has risen 1% over the past 12 months, but it is still well within its historic range. So, all right, so the public's doing all right for the most part, but we're probably arguing with each other. There's still probably a lot of instability and concern and worry, and we will be, really talking about that, I believe, a lot. Lots of articles are going to come out, maybe some books. People are going to be all over social media talking about this. There's going to be a lot of, I believe, instability. Okay, next. Foreign allies are outraged to realize that they've been carefully placated with glimpses of obsolete models. European leaders publicly accuse the U.S. of creating rogue AI and hold summits demanding a pause, with India, Israel, Russia, and China all joining in. So everybody's mad at the United States because, they've been keeping stuff secret. They kept all that stuff secret, and they were just sending little bits and pieces to our friends. And now they're like, excuse me, there was way more going on and you didn't even tell us. Now, we don't, now we're upset. So they're holding summits everywhere. I could believe it. It'll be all over the news. Yep, I believe it. A frantic energy has seized the White House. Even before the memo and public backlash, they were getting nervous. Over the past year, they've been repeatedly surprised by the speed of AI progress. Things that sound like science fiction keep happening in real life. Many people in the administration are uncertain and scared about what comes next. They also worry that OpenBrain is becoming too powerful. Any misalignment risk from the AIs themselves is compounded by the risk that their parent company's aims may diverge from those of the United States. All three sets of worries, misalignment, concentration of power in a private company, and normal concerns like job loss, motivate the government to tighten its control. They expanded their contract with OpenBrain to set up an oversight committee, a joint management committee of company and government representatives, with several government employees included alongside company leadership. The White House considers replacing the CEO with someone they trust. That's interesting. They could just replace the CEO? I guess so, but that's a little The White House considers replacing the CEO with someone they trust, but backs off after intense employee protests. They announced to the public that OpenBrain was previously out of control, but that the government has established much needed oversight. So the government starts coming out and saying, okay, looks, all right, yes, this was bad, but we have it under control now. They were out of control before, but we're here. We've got our oversight committee. We're watching them. Everything's going to be fine. I could see that happening too. I feel like they've done similar things in other crisis-like situations in the past. The concerned researchers briefed the Oversight Committee on their case for stopping all internal use of Agent 4. They argue that everything is moving too fast, with years of progress happening in weeks. That's crazy. They argue that Agent 4 may be misaligned. Their entire project is dependent on Agent 4, and if they continue trusting it, there is a serious chance of AI takeover. So this is the other side, less concerned researchers and executives present the counterargument. The evidence for misalignment is inconclusive. Meanwhile, DeepSyn is still just 2 months behind. A slowdown would sacrifice America's lead unless the government can sabotage the Chinese project, likely to require, basically you have to go sabotage them, or negotiate an 11th hour treaty. Both of these options seem extreme and unlikely. The CEO feigns neutrality and suggests a compromise plan in which Agent 4 undergoes additional safety training and more sophisticated monitoring, and therefore OpenBrain can proceed at almost full speed. And I believe now we get to, right. So I'm going to stop here because the video is already too long. And I do want to go through these, but I kind of went over what ends up happening in both of these scenarios in my overview, my little presentation, but still. So that was the full report. I skipped over a couple of months, but that is basically the full report of AI 2027. And as you can see, there is a lot of interesting information that they put forward in this report that I thought, it was interesting for me to read and go through. And again, seeing all the things that they cite, and there's papers in there that are really interesting that they're citing that I would like to look at, and other articles for why they are saying certain things. I think that this is important. It's going to affect our society big time. I believe it's imminent. And so it's good to kind of get a glimpse into what potentially could happen. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'm going to let you guys go because it's been a long one. But if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. And I am going to see you in the next one.